We're live. We're live. We're
Hey,
ready
so
to
so
rock.
so so glad to do this today, man. Thank you
Me
for
too.
having me, Dan.
All good. All good. Yeah, man. So
Well,
where do we start? There is so much. There's so many angles that we can go with this, man. I mean, I know we both have a lot to say about this, especially right now. Like last year, before we spoke, last time we spoke, it was a little bit softer here in Sydney, and knowing like what was happening in Melbourne, we could feel the tension and just how much it was driving people up the fucking wall. And now it's like, nah, this is way too much. This is fucking far fetched. And you know what? Like us, especially us men, we gotta fucking step up and really like speak about this because our future relies on us. The future generation relies on us, and we've got to make a stance. However possible, with whatever knowledge, information, our network, the communities that we have. Otherwise, this shit's gonna bring us down fucking shit creek, man. And I'm not here for it. You're not here for it. And fuck, like, there's so much we can do, and now's the fucking time.
spot on, man. Spot on. And look, I want to make it very clear that before I really get into a large amount of dissemination of information, I
Yeah,
want to make it clear that when I look at everything that has happened and unfolded over the years, Dan,
yeah,
I've been doing this research since I was 15. Okay,
mm,
maybe people will not fucking believe me, but it all started in 2006.
yeah,
And if people want to understand, because look, there's a lot of people coming out on the internet and talking heaps of shit, right?
yeah, yeah,
There's too
yeah.
much information out there, and I'll get to all that, within the talk. But for people that don't know, and I don't go peacocking the feathers on this, but I'm a history major at the University of Sydney, right?
Mm,
So I've studied history. I've looked at it from multiple different standpoints. I studied anti-fascism and fascism. I understand these things
mm,
in quite a great detail. But the main question, and this is just to clear all the bullshit, because this is the main question every single person needs to ask in Australia. Do you trust your government?
oh,
Let that
good
sink
question.
in. Let that
Yeah,
fucking sink in. Do you trust your government?
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, Dan,
yeah.
either you're going to listen to everything they say and trust them with your life, because that's what you're
Mm,
doing. You're trusting them with
yeah,
your life for their recommendation for you to get the
yeah,
vaccine, whether it's AstraZeneca, whether it's Pfizer, regardless of what
yeah,
vaccines are available to us in the market. Or you need to take responsibility for yourself and trust yourself, or potentially on a spiritual level, which we'll get to in today's talk,
yeah,
your God, or whatever you believe in, okay? And that is
yeah.
something that goes a little bit deeper, which we can really get into. So, why I want to bring that up as a starting point is the reason I like to ask that is because, as we've seen every single day in the news, every single day of what's coming out on the government update website, there are multiple inconsistencies. People are fucking confused. I could go into multiple narratives out there now where
Mm,
you can see people don't know what the fuck to do, whether
yeah,
whether to wear a mask here, whether to get this vaccination, whether to get that vaccination, how many times you need to be jabbed, how many potential jabs you need to get in order to be safe. Uh,
oh,
Really, this is a question, man. This is a
yeah,
question you got to ask yourself. And man,
yeah,
I could probably be fucking censored for even just posing that as a question.
yeah.
But I don't give a shit anymore, because
Nah,
people deserve to really have the freedom to think about this before they go in and decide to get a vaccine, go in and decide to comply further with what the government's saying to them. Because at the end of the day, it's your life. You're either putting it in the government's hands, or you're going to take it upon yourself to make a concise decision as an individual of what to do.
100%, man. Very well said. And the other question I like to add is like, why do you trust your government, and what have they served for you? And at this stage, like you said, like we're placing so much power in their hands, okay, through this whole narrative that they're pushing, right? And not questioning what is actually going behind the curtain, because it's a lot safer. A lot of us want to feel safe. There's a lot happening. And like you said, there's a lot of misinformation. We're confused. There's so much fear. We want the best option right now, because as humans we're always trying to survive. And honestly, like, sometimes we just gotta take a break and take a moment to breathe and actually rationalize these things, because you know these quick decisions that you make instantaneously based on your own fear, based on this adrenaline that pumping through you day in, day out, because, you know, you're watching the media, you're digesting all this information, and you're not quite sure, can make us make decisions that you're going to regret. And right now, like, we got to speak about these things so we can make proper decisions that's not going to impact, you know, not just ourselves, but everyone around us. This shit's affecting everyone. And we got to rationalize this here, man. Let's got to think with some logic, some common sense, and ask ourselves why these things are happening. You know, where are they moving this into? Like this whole
Absolutely. So look, I love the way you bring up your particular type of points of view. Let's first start with health. Okay, now I'm going to give credit where credit is due.
Okay.
I want to thank Romper, key name in my book. I'll just call him Romper. Okay.
Yeah.
Brought up an article. I shared it with you. The video of the doctor talking about the AstraZeneca jab. Right. He was given really conflicting information on that news channel. And even the subtle cues that he was making seemed very off. And this is what they're presenting to the common people. He's saying there's mixed messages, but it's starting to become very clear. But then he gave this really insidious smile. And then you're really thinking, okay, if the common people are fucking watching this, what are they thinking, right? He who has ears, let them hear, all right? Because what I'm going to get into now, it's going to only filter out a certain amount of people who are meant to listen to this message. There's filters to shit. If people think I'm going to sound like a fucking schizophrenic or something like that, I don't give a fuck anymore, man. I reckon people deserve to hear an opinion that they're looking for to have some more clarity. And it's not even at the point of where, you know, you have to start going through analysis of information. It's you thinking for yourself and taking responsibility for yourself. So you watch the news, you're taking the advice from health professionals. All right. This is about our health, right? This is technically what it's about. You deal with health yourself. How have you approached this whole thing in regards to health?
Oh, okay. Well, the way that I've seen it, like, firstly, like, these things that are supposed to, you know, boost our immunity, right? Okay, these, by exposing ourselves to diseases and these minerals, these metals, all these things that they put in the jab, right? That's helps us fight it. Now, firstly, the way that I go about it is prevention over, you know, the fucking Band-Aid, right? If we want to prevent ourselves from certain diseases, illnesses, cancers, the best way to do that is to, let's reverse engineer that shit, right? Like, what's causing these things in the first place? Let's look at how mucus, okay, all right, which is a buildup of slime in our lungs, in our joints, in our, you know, in our system, because of certain foods, right? So certain foods like processed foods, GMO foods, okay, foods that are full of heavy metals, things that are going to build up toxins in our blood, in our bloodstream. And that's pretty much how most diseases and illnesses are caused in the first place. A buildup of mucus. Okay, when there's too much mucus, we start to build inflammation. And we start to build inflammation, we get all this congestion, all this excess of toxins that creates diseases, what we call tumors and cancers and diseases, right? So a lot of it comes down really to how we eat, okay, what we put into our body. Now, for me, I personally have, that's it, yeah. That's
food is information.
Exactly, bro. We are what we consume, whether that be food, whether that be what we see, what we listen, okay, the environments that we place ourselves in, okay, our mind is constantly digesting information. And like you said, food is information, right? Now, I personally consume, you know, a whole food plant-based diet for the simple reason as there's so much study to prove that a lot of these things prevent and reverse diseases, right? I minimize my processed foods. Okay, I try to keep things mostly organic because, you know, a lot of the pesticides as well, they spray on conventional food. Terrible for our health. Now, by doing this, okay, I put my body in a more alkaline state. Our body, okay, thrives on a balanced alkaline state. So there can be certain foods as well that's acidic, right? Like some processed foods, okay, some meats, dairy, all this kind of stuff. And when we're in a when our body is in a more acidic state, okay, we're more prone to diseases and cancers and illnesses. And the best way to do that is bring ourselves into the middle. How do we do that? We have more whole foods, okay? We have more fruits, we have more veggies, leafy greens, things that are full of antioxidants, things that are full of, okay, enzymes, things that are going to help break down our food, that's going to give us life, okay? The more life we have in our body, okay, the more charged we are. we're electromagnetic beings, okay? Therefore, we need electricity in our body, and most of that comes from our food. So the way that I go about this is like, okay, well, they can offer me all the best fucking vaccines in the world. They can tell me, all right, it's gonna definitely protect you, right? Which they're saying, which is fucking stupid. Like, one, you can still catch the fucking virus even though you're jabbed. Is one, just to prevent it in the first place. How do I prevent this? One, I'll expose myself to the disease. I'll expose myself to the virus because my body can fight it. I'm pretty sure I copped it last year, the first wave, got those little symptoms, and you know what? My body is smart enough to fight this disease. So for me, it's just more so, let's take a step back, okay? What's causing these things in the first place? For example, like eating a bat. Let's stop fucking eating bats and animals and such. And then how about we start eating more foods that's gonna improve us, it's gonna help us thrive, it's gonna help us nourish. So that's my strategy with the health aspect, man.
Yeah, they always say prevention is better than cure. And
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that is, the best way we should approach anything in life, especially health, because I mean, it is really based on a health, topic. Now, I very much am into health myself. I've changed my whole diet around. I've, really thoroughly have looked after myself over the last, 10 years, and I've had to continually make those steps. But when you start listening to people who are in control of the health protocols for the government, in control of telling you what you should and shouldn't put into your body, and then you take a look at them, and this is not knocking on people who don't look healthy, all right? You're not playing the part. You know what I mean? You're not the person. 100%. You're not the fucking poster boy or poster girl to talk about health to me, right? You don't even look like you look after yourself. Why should I listen to you to begin with to recommend what I should be putting in my body? Okay, that 100%. Is, for example, if I'm going to learn boxing or wrestling, I want to learn from someone who actually fucking knows how to do it, right? I want to learn martial arts from somebody who's gone in the ring, competed, looks and plays the part, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same with your health. So let's take a look at the people who actually are running the health fucking facility for the country and really asking, are they focusing on the paramount things? Prevention is better than cure is the first philosophy for that. What's their fucking daily diet like? What are they eating? What information are they putting in their body? Why don't they show us? So then maybe we should be looking at that first. Start with the fundamentals, because at the end of the day, if you're going to eat shit, and by the way, for all of you that you can go to, Macca's, Subway, Domino's, all those places are open. You can go there. I don't have anything against with people going there, but you take responsibility for your health regardless of where you go and where you eat, right? Even whether you're pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine, if you want to eat there, by all means, go there. If you get stomach problems, that's your problem, all right? So that's pretty much where I'm getting at. So what measures would you tell someone who hasn't got the virus yet? How would you structure their life to make sure they're eating properly?
To make sure they're eating properly.
Yeah.
So there's a few ways. I mean, planning it out. We just keep it as simple as possible. Now, my current lifestyle, I usually start my day with lots of water. Okay. During the midday, I'll have either like a light smoothie with some berries. Okay, things that are full of antioxidants, full of healthy fats. Okay, through my seeds. Okay, a bit of protein to keep my muscle recovery from whatever I do, whether you're training or not. Keeping my amino acids up through that. And then at the end of the day, I typically have like one meal a day. I have a huge plant-based meal with some grains, black rice, wild rice, okay, with some beans, chickpeas, leafy greens. In terms of like structuring it, I mean, for me, the simplest way, the best advice I can give is like eat it whole, man. Eat it whole. Eat the real food that comes from nature, that is grown by light. These foods that contain light contain certain information. We can go through the spiritual part and say, look, these you will digest information from the sun that's constantly giving to us, right? When you look at like a piece of fruit, for example, versus something that was grown its entire life inside the darkness, what are you going to opt more for? Something that's got a seed, for example, that's literally made so we can shit in fucking nature and regrow and fucking build a whole abundance of trees for us to fucking eat. The way that I go in, whenever I try to give advice in terms of like eating a whole food, I always say just have a balance of each. Have a balance of protein source. Have a balance of carbohydrate source. Have a balance of fat. Forget all the fucking low carb, high carb, all this fucking keto, all this noise out there. Forget that. Eat things that's actually gonna fuel your body. Eat things that's gonna nourish your body. Eat things that it's going to improve the alkalinity in your body. Try and avoid the acidic stuff. Avoid the the fizzy drinks. Minimize all this stuff. I get it. These things are great. However, it's going to cost you down the line. If you just think for a moment, okay, a hospital bill is going to cost you way more than You might think you're invincible now, especially if you're young, you're healthy, you might be fit, running around, yada yada. But these things are not going to matter down the line when you're in hospital and realizing, fuck, like I could have made a huge difference in terms of what I was eating. So for me, it's just eat whole foods. Get the leafy greens, get the fruits, get the vegetables. Your avocados, your melons, your apples, bananas, things that are a bit more alkaline, and you'll find the difference. I know from my own personal experience when I went from heavy meat-based bodybuilding lifestyle, I went vegetarian, and then I went vegan, and then I tried experimenting with raw foods, just uncooked. I found myself to be at the highest state of awareness. I found myself a lot more at peace. I found myself with way more energy, and for me, that's my goal. My aim is to live at that kind of level, and help people understand that we can prevent these things from damaging our body as long as we consume things that's actually going to make us live better.
And you know what, man? This is something that I've gone over with Sim.
Yeah.
I'd like to give a shout out to Sim.
Yeah.
My whole life has changed since I've taken your approach. It just seems, when you're on that frequency, you have that awareness of how food provide knowledge into your body to be able to act as a defense mechanism, and also to regulate things such as your blood, your emotions, and on a deeper level, the spirituality, right?
Yeah.
So, and don't get me wrong, it's very difficult to have a completely perfect diet. We all do slip ups here and there, but when you keep it mostly consistent, you will feel a great change. And in order for you to, what you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, men wanting to stand up, talk, fight, they need to start thinking about putting the right information into their bodies to begin with, right?
Yeah.
That's why I said, it don't start going out and being anti-vaccine or anti-this or anti-that until you've gotten it right with yourself, taken responsibility for yourself and for the food you're putting in your body. Because at the end of the day, what you eat is going to dictate your daily life. And I would like to add, something as simple as this: if you're eating in places that are cooked where they cook in canola oil, regardless of how healthy the food is, right? That canola oil will fuck your stomach, and you won't really have a great rest of the day. And that's just something people have to be aware of. Eating at the right places, regardless of how healthy they make the food look.
100%. And you coming back to that, going back to the gut, right? A lot of our moods, start with the gut. A lot of our serotonin is developed in the gut. Most people think it's in the brain, right? We feel good up here. No, it starts everything in there. And a lot of funny. I spoke to a nutrition specialist the other day, and she was talking about how a lot of this mucus, right, that we build up in our stomachs, from a young age is still hanging on there, and they put us in certain cycles of eating certain foods. So if you grew up, for example, eating processed foods, fish fingers, pizza, yada yada, sometimes you'll find yourself craving those foods just because you still have those things inside of your gut. Everything, most of how we feel starts in there, and by placing more awareness, all right, how's this going to affect my mood? How is this going to improve my gut? Is it fibrous? Is it anti-inflammatory? Am I getting enough leafy greens? Am I getting, the turmeric? It's going to help, reverse those things. And just asking this simple question, placing awareness, how is this going to help improve my life? Now, you said, you've got the historian background. Now, tell me, we've spoken about this before. This is not the first time it's happened, right? So back in the early 90s, we've had all these different kinds of flus, right? We've had Spanish flu, we've had the fucking, swine flu, all this stuff. Now it seems like to me it's more of like a repetition of cycles. This is not the first time where we've had to wear masks, right? What's your take on this whole thing? Like, are you seeing a certain cycle of, okay, are people complying because we're seeing them, putting them in their place, or we kind of know where they're at in terms of their awareness? How do you see all of this in history?
Yeah, so there was something that I guess this hit me back in 2018, and I saw this in a dream. Intuitions and Archetypes and Intuitions, which is the book I'm writing. It proposes that history will rewrite itself.
Yeah.
And there is a cycle that takes place. And as you go deeper and deeper into that cycle of time, you see that things rewrite themselves, but in a different context, right?
Yeah.
And that's what the path of intuition proposed, that history will write itself and humans will live in a separate timeline, in a separate context, experiencing that in the human experience, right? So why is this on a philosophical, spiritual, fundamental level important? Because now we need to start looking at patterns, because intuition is on the basis of patterns, right?
Yeah.
Now, the way I look at it is this is things over time become more and more manipulated, okay? So for example, the equivalent of manipulation in the Nazi Germany era was propaganda through Joseph Goebbels, through nationalism, and even just World War One. Like if you look at all the World War One posters, it's good to fight for your country. The amount of belief they were giving into the people that it was a good decision for you to go and fight for your country, and you will be rewarded. But what did we find out? That most of the men ended up going on the battlefield and getting slaughtered in the first day, and they weren't, there's no reprise, no reward, right? And why is there so much antagonism against war, that we're taught about in school? War's bad, war's this in the history classes, because we trusted our government to go to war and we thought we are going to fucking walk out with a new country with women or all this type of stuff and take over another country's land. But instead, a whole millions of people got fucked, right? And God bless their souls, God bless their souls for going and doing that, because they didn't know any better. They were only limited to the information that they were provided and they were trusted from by their government, right? Now, of course, we're looking at this in a different context. We're looking at this in the scheme of a pandemic. So yes, we can look at other pandemics. And, yes, I believe to a degree the government does have a great duty of care and do want to show that. But have the government shown that they have been consistent, competent, and aware enough to be able to tackle the problem? I won't say COVID fake. COVID is real, okay? It's happening out there. So COVID is real, and the severity of it is dependent upon the country you're in, and that depends on population, the level of hygiene that country lives in. I used to live in India. I know what it's like. I spent 2 times in Russia, and I can go into detail about that too, which will go to the detail about the Soviet era. But what I really want to bring my attention to is that when you are making a concise choice about understanding the red pill, so I call this the red pill because the big fucking red pill is that where does the line go where you start trusting too much of your life to the government, right? Where does that happen? That's the fucking red pill. So in every single historical empire, right, there comes a point in time where regardless of the national circumstance, pandemic, war, nation attacking you, blah, 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 and whether it maybe even civil war as well, okay, where does the line blur in terms of whether you decide to stand up and fight or whether you decide to go ahead and agree with what is going on in the common narrative to maintain order and peace? And this is where revolutions start, right? Now, the difference between this lockdown in Australia and any other lockdown that had happened since COVID started is now there's another factor being thrown in the mix, which a lot of people, who were kind of attuned to what's going on were aware, and that is the fact that there may potentially be a mandatory vaccine, which is if you impose it as, let's just say it's not mandatory at the moment. The government site says it's not mandatory at the moment, but it is looking like it is the sale. If there is a sale going on, the sale is happening where
Oh, shit.
they're going to back you into a corner. I do sales psychology. You know that's what I
100%.
work in. I work in
That's the
sales.
goal.
This they're backing you into a corner to sale. They've come up with all these angles that, well, no, you got to
Yeah,
get it if you're
yeah, yeah,
working with aged care. Oh, well, you
yeah,
better
yeah,
get it if you're going to be
yeah,
doing this, if you're going to travel. So wait,
yeah,
so what? Now I have to buy. You know what I mean? Now I
yeah,
have to
yeah,
buy. I
yeah,
have to. I'm
yeah,
fucking sold, man. I have to
yeah,
buy.
yeah.
But why is so now the question is, why is the vaccine bad? Well, the thing is, it's not a question of whether the vaccine is bad or not, right? Because there are
Yeah.
multiple vaccines. You've got mRNA, you've got the vector-based vaccine, which is Sputnik, Russian one. You have the Chinese-based vaccine, which is more of traditional type vaccine, and the ones India made, right? But the issue is how the sale between what the news or the government are trying to tell you
Mm,
and how they're trying to angle you to take the vaccine seems
mm,
creepy, man. It seems
yeah.
like a fucking pushy salesperson telling you, better take it, better take it. Plus the propaganda and news. I'm a salesperson. I should fucking know what you're trying to
Yeah,
do to me. You're trying to back
yeah,
me in the corner. If you freely allowed me to take responsibility for my life and make the conscious choice of whether
mm,
I want to take the vaccine or not, then maybe I might be a little less resistant. But when you
yeah,
force any human individual between in any type of dynamic to do something, it's never going to look good and it's going to look suspicious. It's human
yeah,
instinct to notice that and realize that. And we have kind of started to take take our ears out and say, hang on, this doesn't fucking sound right.
yeah, yeah. 100%. Like, yeah, like anytime you have that kind of walking experience, whether you're buying shoes, clothes, you can sense, you feel that vibe when someone's like, okay, like, I really want you to buy this because one, I've got an agenda, whether that be to pay my bills, but for them, more so like, okay, why are they really, really pushing this? Why are they, like, for example, like if masks and all that are kind of working, if they have their effect, why aren't we still allowing businesses to open, you know, with that? Like, I mean, for example, like there are places where they're open, like people can, like, I don't know if you saw this, maybe about this, you got people shopping at Kmart and then the Louis, they can't shop at Kmart, but they got the Louis Vuitton fucking shop open. Like, it's just wild to think just how much, how much push, and even with the media, with how much things are happening in the world, like there are like other things happening in England and Europe and South Africa with all these things, all these protests. Yet, why aren't they showing that? Because, as we know, it doesn't fit their fucking narrative. It doesn't fit their agenda on a daily basis. One thing that really boggles my mind, right? These guys push so much for stay indoors, stay indoors, stay indoors. Yet these politicians are not broadcasting indoors. Sorry, not indoors, in their own homes, right? If they want people so much to stay at home, why the fuck are they not at home? And people are allowing this. And going back to what you said, what is the difference between, people going to war, people allowing these things and going to, I think it's people losing hope. They have absolutely no hope in what's going on because the media has sucked the life out of these people, right? And they think they have no option. When you're in that frequency of low vibration and all you do is feel fear, you'll take anything. You'll be whatever you're desperate for. That's what you're gonna grab because you feel like, I don't have an option because that's what they're saying. And it's all you hear. You hear it on the news. You hear it in the community. You got people speaking on behalf of the fucking news. It's like, no, hold the fuck up. Like, I do have a choice. I always have a choice. It's just a matter of allowing myself to question these things so I can, see the bigger picture and see what it is that's actually going on. Like you said.
And you know what? Speaking about having a choice, okay?
Mm,
So let's talk. So I personally went to the doctor
mm,
to inquire about getting the vaccine because I'm a
yeah,
rational human being and I would like to see what my options are if
yeah,
I decided that I would get the vaccine
yeah,
because it's proven that in science vaccines do work and has worked. We have taken
yeah,
vaccines before.
yeah,
Um, there are side effects from vaccines. For those of you who don't know, I was fucked by a vaccine myself. I got moderate hearing loss, mild to
yeah,
moderate
right,
in the left ear, moderate to severe in the right ear. Okay, that's why I
yeah,
talk so fucking loud.
yeah,
Because sometimes I have to hear myself a little more clearly. So,
yeah,
and you know what? That had a fucking massive effect on my learning ability at the
yeah,
beginning, and then I managed to get the right training to be able to deal with it. So it's not a problem anymore. But the thing is, it's permanent loss, permanent damage. So
Yeah.
yes, there are side effects from vaccines for unlucky people. Anyway, with that being said, it is a valid reason to consider that there will be people who take vaccines and get side effects. I don't doubt that, right?
Yeah.
Most of the research shows that the vaccines that you take that have been shown for COVID have been able to boost the immunity, but there's a huge fucking but. Okay? Even if it has, because of mRNA is relatively a new thing, and this is when I went to the doctor to consult, whether I should take it or not. And we've already seen multiple issues with the AstraZeneca vaccine. So it shows that, hey, even the government are telling you, don't take it if you're under this age, then changing how often you should take it. That should be enough fucking red flags to make you think, I don't know if the vaccine's the right fucking thing for me to do if the government aren't even sure about how many jabs you need to take and what duration you need to wait before the next jab. This is very because it's kind of like once you're in it, you got to stay with it, right? And this is where there's very inconsistent, incongruent information coming from them. And we don't know whether it's their fault, but the thing is, we also don't know what to do because the reality is, Daniel, Sydney will remain in lockdown until everybody gets vaccinated or something. But even so, I want to just add with the choice. So I said, all right, well, we got your Pfizer, you got your AstraZeneca, okay? You got those ones. What about the other vaccines that are available on the market, like Sputnik, vector-based vaccine, right? Which is a different type of chain development to the mRNA, similar but still has a different type of protocol to how it operates, right? And has been around. I was told since for the last 40 years, I think, since the 1980s, right? Now, they won't let you get the Sputnik vaccine simply because Australia have bad political relations with Russia. And instead of giving you the choice to take a Russian vaccine, they've decided not to allow it to come into the country. Same with China because of bad political relations. So basically, even if you decided you wanted to take the vaccine, you're limited to the options the Australian government are allowing you to have. And I think that's a fucking problem as well, right? So if you're one of these people that are thinking, I want to get the vaccine, well, your options are limited, right? You're only allowed to buy from what the shop has. And if there's better products you can go out and shop for, right, or potentially other products that you're more interested in, you as a consumer should be entitled to have access to that if it is indeed mandatory that you get it.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny how you say that because when you look at it like that, it's like that just gives them so much more power when you're in that position where it's like, fuck, like, what other option do I have? Well, where's my fucking choice in that when, they're only giving you so much and it's like, well, too bad. Like, this is it for you. And if you don't comply, if you don't do this, then you can't travel, you can't go to your job, you can't even fucking go outside of your fucking suburb, which we can get into. Now, as you see, I don't know, they're pushing the police military down in the southwest. People can't even go outside to job sites just because they're traveling more than 10 Ks. Like, it's becoming absolutely disgusting just how they're approaching this because, at the end of the day, as humans, we have a fucking choice. We deserve freedom of choice, whether it is we build our own community, like, if these things are really designed to protect you, why is it we are targeting so much on those who are pro-choice? It's not so much anti-vaccine, anti-fucking mask, No. At the end of the day, I'm a fucking human being, and I got my own rights to fucking live by. And I'm not here to fucking. I'm not here to tell you what to do, right? So you have no fucking right to tell me what to do.
Exactly, and this is why something like this is putting your trust, your faith in the government to be able to let you know what is best advised for your health. And look, we should be able to trust our government. We should be able to get them to provide us the best options for health. And in some regard, they do. But at this point in time, we know that the information out there is so conflicting, and the information that we're provided is so conflicting. The internet has, look, the age of information is here, Dan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's been written in the book of Daniel, coincidentally the same name, the book of Daniel. Daniel's based on a prophet's name,
Yeah.
where many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased, because there's that much
Mm.
knowledge. People
Yeah.
are running to and fro, what to do, where to go, you know.
Mm.
But I want to bring up something, because I can share screen on this, can't I?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to do that now. Give me a second.
Yeah.
I want to show you the System 333 framework. So here, can you see that, by the way?
No.
Oh, you can't. It says StreamYard is sharing a window, so I think maybe it should be working. Is it not working, or you can't see it?
Let's see.
Hold up. All right. Well, if it's not sharing, that's fine, because okay, you can't see it. Thanks. People say can't see it. That's fine. All right. So what I'll do is I'll just explain it then. So pretty much so System 333, as you can see, my book is in the top. I don't know if it's my top left and the top right on the screen for viewers. So this is the book. This is my first book. I'm in the process of writing my second one. So System 333, as you can see in the symbol, right, is a correlation of information, all working in a kind of triad between the objective, subjective, and human experience. It's all a massive feedback loop, right? Now, what's interesting is this was created back in 2017 and was a map of reality for the age of information. Why is that relevant to this? Because what's fucking people up the most right now is that there's too much damn information, right? Too much damn information. People don't know who to believe, what to believe. Did China do it? Did America do it? Is it planned? You know, did it come out of a lab? You know what? If we want to backtrack all the way to the beginning of this narrative and where it took place, nobody actually knew where the virus came from. And more evidence is showing that it was a man-made virus and wasn't made from bats, you know, in a fucking wet market, right? So this goes to show, again, as I said over the history major, that you really don't know the facts on history until a lot later on down the track. And we don't even know why Hitler had so much animosity towards the Jews even until today, right? There's no real clear evidence. So we will maybe really never know why this coronavirus came about. All we can do is take responsibility for our lives while we are living in history, right? If we want to look for the past. Now, let me just I guess throw in a few caveats, right? So the biggest caveat is here. And with regard to System 333, what type of information you put in to your mind, it doesn't matter who you follow, even watching this is a form of information. In the end, you need to ask yourself a question. Do you trust the government with your life for your health? Or are you going to take the responsibility on yourself to look after your health moving forward? Whether it means what you eat, the information you put in your body, which is probably the best thing to do for every single person. Number two, whether you decide it's your choice whether you want to get the vaccine or not and which vaccine you get, right? Because maybe today you might need 2 Pfizer jabs. Maybe in a week there'll be a news article you might need 3. And then maybe in about a couple of months you might need fucking 10, all right? Because that's just the updated news that's come out. So be wise, because once you sign up for it, you're going to have to wear it, right? And it may not work out too favorably because you may not get any reaction on the first, second, or third jab, but who knows what happens after that, right? There's no concrete evidence to know the long term or the effects down the track. That's your responsibility. So doesn't matter what information you hear, Daniel, people have to take responsibility. What have you got to say about that?
Oh, I absolutely agree with you, man. Like, regardless of, you know, the one thing that's really created a lot cause through this whole thing is a lot of chaos and a lot of division. Right, and through that confusion, through that fear, we've been divided into mask wearers, anti-vaxxers, yada yada yada, and through that, I think what we're seeing, okay, on a deeper level, is a lot of chaos within ourselves, right? So when we're chaotic, the world's a bit more chaotic, okay, and then so it's easier to put our power into the hands of a government, which is a lot easier. It's the easy option, right? At the end of the day, if we can control the chaos within ourselves, okay, if we can govern ourselves, if we can become more self-sufficient, you know, like you said, place more awareness on the information that we're digesting, take everything with a fucking grain of salt, right? Don't take everything as fact, because not everything we hear, listen, and see is true. It's true to what we see, right? We're practically blind to human beings. We can only see 0.003% of the light spectrum, right? So think about that. And a lot of what we see on the news, okay, some things are fake, some things are true. At the end of the day, you don't want to try and pick sides so much, right? Fucking anti-vax, anti-mask, mask wear, whatever. At the end of the day, right now, what we need more than ever is to come together and let's lay all the facts down, right? Instead of like, oh, okay, this is true. Okay, all right, this is what I was told by a doctor, yada yada yada. Okay, and then we solidify that reality. We stop ourselves from allowing new information that can shift our whole perspective and place a whole new awareness in these times. So again, coming back to the chaos, like what we're seeing now is just merely a reflection of like, okay, why am I feeling chaotic? Why am I feeling like, okay, there's so much confusion? Because one, like you said, in the age of information, right? There is just so much overwhelming knowledge that pulls us in different directions. How about we just ground ourselves a little bit? How about we just rationalize ourselves and say, okay, that's what they say. Okay, it could be true, but I'm going to take that with a grain of salt and move forward and see what's best for me and for the people around me, as opposed to, okay, that's definitely true because a doctor said it. No, you got to question these things. Doctors are even questioning the whole narrative. Medical experts are coming out and say, hey, listen, guys, like, that we have cures for this. We have the right tools to reverse this whole thing. We don't need to go into lockdown. We don't need to wear these masks. And you know what? Instead of watching the news like 2-3 times a day, how about you go live your life? How about you give that a break? And then, if it's that important, you'll fucking hear it. You'll hear it from your fucking neighbor. If this thing is so deadly, right? Okay, 99 point whatever fucking percent, 97% chance of you dying, you would see people collapsing on the street. And sure, the symptoms may not start early, right? They could start later down the line. But at the end of the day, we got to think of how we can live with this thing, because doctors are even claiming, hey, it's just like the fucking flu. Let's just chill the fuck out and realize it's not as crazy as it seems. There might be a new strain on the market. So fucking what? More people are getting infected. But that doesn't mean you're gonna die. You just might have it. Doesn't mean you. And when we put ourselves in this state, when we put ourselves in fear, what does that do to our body? It puts our immunity levels down. We become more acidic. And when we're acidic,
the parasympathetic, moving out of the parasympathetic. Is that right?
That's it. And when we're more acidic, we're more prone to diseases. We're more prone to illnesses, cancers, and these things will build up. And especially when we're not outside exercising and they want us indoors all the time, what happens? We build up this stagnant energy. We become depressed, right? All this energy is compressed and you feel like you have nowhere to go. And what do you rely on? The box in your fucking living room, right? You rely on that information instead of getting information from the outside or getting information from within. Having a look at how we can shift in a different direction as opposed to just being boxed up, because a lot of us, live our lives boxed up. We put ourselves into, like, for example, if you're the everyday person, right? Just because you work at a certain job, right? And you think differently, and people might not think, okay, just because you don't have a medical certificate or some sort of degree, you don't have the authority. No, you're allowed to fucking question. You're allowed to be an expert in a field, right? And think, okay, well, maybe that's not quite right. Maybe I'm not just a fucking taxi driver or a fucking forklift driver or whatever it is. You're allowed to question the narrative. You give yourself permission to say, hey, like, fuck, there's information out there that can really change my life, and I'm going to sink myself into it and see what could possibly be true, because everyone's truth is a little bit different, right? And not everything that we see, in the fucking television or out there is true. I question the things that I fucking believe 24/7. I think, okay, what I thought last week, that wasn't quite true. I'm going to change my perspective on that and then move forward.
Absolutely. And this is why it's important to have that feedback loop of being able to reevaluate what you think, your belief systems, etc. But, I want to really get into, I guess, a bit of a deep question with saying that. What is the end game? If let's say the Australian people do nothing about this, what is the end game, Dan?
fucking very good question. And I'm feeling that. And I can really sense within the next 2 to 3 months, there's going to be a huge resistance, especially if we don't right fucking now, if we don't fucking stand up right now, do whatever it is that you have. Even if you have like 10 fucking 15 followers on Instagram or Facebook, that doesn't fucking matter. Right now is placing more awareness on the people around and say, hey, like, are you really okay with the way things are going? And be fucking honest with yourself. As much as you think, okay, we got to go through this lockdown, wear the mask, get the vaccines, are you still okay with that? Because at the end of the day, these people are literally governing our lives. Government comes from the word govern, okay, which is to guide, meant, which is mind. These guys are literally herding us into a fucking corner because we think we don't have a choice, which we do. And honestly, like, I'm feeling the resistance now, and it's getting frustrating to see, people who have that power, like, for example, celebrities and all these influencers, going about their agenda, whatever. And fair enough, like, you got a business to run, but at the end of the day, man, like, this thing's going to impact you, whether you like it or not. You have a responsibility to make sure that the lives around you are going to be safe. The government's using the word safe. No, they're not making me feel fucking safe. I'm fucking terrified of these people. They're fucking bunch of crazy because they want to tell me what to do with my body. That doesn't make me feel safe at all, And coming to this, like, that we've got to do something about it, whether that be fucking protest or a protest coming up the next month. I'm seeing petition. These are all absolutely wonderful. But my message is, if you can do something about it, do something about it.
Absolutely. You mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I'd like to bring the point out again that, men especially, men's with it, like I mentioned, in the war, World War One, men went and fought for their country. Even in so many different scenarios in history, men was the one to take the reins and, take it upon themselves to be able to fight for their rights and for the greater good of the people. What do you think is the problem now with men? In the standpoint that I feel like a lot of men feel the same about it, but they just don't know who to go to, how to talk about it, or what to believe,
Yeah. Oh, man, this is such a good question because I feel like the way today's society is, and especially with certain genders that they've been pushed out there, they've feminized men, okay?
Yep.
Turn men to fucking take the fucking back seat in this whole thing, all right?
Yep.
And not to say women can't be great leaders. Women can be absolutely fucking amazing leaders, all right? But as a man, to be a fucking role model into today's society, I'm not seeing that very often. I particularly didn't have many, like, strong male role models growing up, and it was hard for me to find someone with some guidance. But the best guidance that I could have was myself, step into that fucking role, step into that power and say, all right, I can actually fucking do something about it. Blow yourself up and let yourself be the fucking man and say, listen, I can make this fucking change. I've got the resources. I've got the fucking connections. I've got the network to say, all right, I've got this support. Okay, I can do something about it. And, realize that if you say nothing now, if you don't say anything now, you're allowing this whole thing to play because you're keeping your mouth shut. And that's the second metaphor behind this whole mask, right? Whether you think it works or not, okay, these masks are like fucking muzzles. They're there to keep you shut because, one, you comply, and if you're not asking these questions, and if you're just doing as they're told, you become a better minion to this whole fucking game. And that's all it is. It's a game at the end of the day. And if you want to play, you got to play fucking hard because these guys are always placing a chess move, okay, in this whole thing. And if you don't think
that's right
clearly, they're gonna have a few steps ahead of you, and before you know it, you blink your eye and you're fucking 80 years old, and you're gonna regret everything because you didn't feel man enough, okay, because of all these things that they push, what's it called? What are some agendas? I don't know, just feminizing men. Like, for example, watching a lot of porn, like that. I saw this study, like, porn is destroying men so much that those who are addicted are literally, man, Zach, bro, this is crazy. They're making men turn into literally women, like dress up like sissies, like wear the wigs, wear the dresses. Those who are heavily addicted to it, literally turn, like, this is crazy, man. Like, believe in yourself, have the fucking confidence. don't be scared to be afraid. As a paradoxical as it sounds, step into it, go out there and show the fucking world that you have a responsibility for your community, for your loved ones, for your family, you know. And you're gonna have people who are gonna go against what you believe, and that's okay, man. Not everyone has the same perspective, but voice up, speak up, stand up for yourself, stand up for the fucking future generations.
I reckon anybody out there, whether you listen to it or you don't, or maybe you come across it, on what we've just, on what you've just said, Dan, and also what I'm about to say, if
Yeah.
you really believe you're a hard cunt and you don't like what's going on, I'd like to see you fucking get up and do something about it. I mean, that's a big fucking call. There's a lot of hard cunts out there. I know there's a lot of hard cunts out there in Sydney, right? I've been in Sydney for years, man. I've seen it. I traveled the world. I've seen hard cunts, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to be a real hard cunt, now's your time, right?
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck what type of martial arts you do, how many tattoos you got, how fucking massive you are, how many cycles you've run. If you don't really like what's fucking going on, you better fucking do something about it now, because now this is the time that's calling, right? And it's your choice. When, like I said, it's your choice, right? At the end of the day, it's your fucking choice. I can't tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Today, I came up here on StreamYard, right, with you, Dan, for the second time to be able to voice my concern, my opinion.
Yeah.
I write my book. I do what I do. I provide information in my own way through the best utility to help people make well-informed decisions for themselves, right? And at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. Now, what I saw when I was in Russia was a result of the rollover of a Soviet Union, which took a whole bunch of different countries, suppressed a whole generation of people, and made them feel like shit for years. They couldn't even fucking go and look at their neighbor and speak to their neighbor, because they were worried that if they said one wrong thing, they get dobbed in, right? So do you want to fucking live like that? Because I walked around, did the Trans-Siberian, east of Russia, all the way to the west. I saw pain and I saw suffering, and they're only still coming out of it. And what is it, 2021? They came out, Soviet Union fell early 90s, right? That is the level of damage of the aftermath as well, still coming out of it. So if you want to think, man, if you're thinking about your families, if you're thinking about your kids, if you're thinking about their kids, their generation, right, you got to start thinking about the rollover effect, and that all begins today.
Yeah, very, very well fucking said, man. And you know, like, we're only seeing the very beginning of how this can play out, because, you know, as we speak, they're already sending out the military police down into the western suburbs. For whatever fucking reason, I don't know why they're sending it that way, because, you know, people are a bit more, I would say, a little bit more obedient or disobedient, a bit more rebellious. They like to question the whole fucking narrative. And, you know, people there, I'll say, the men are more manly there because they fucking stand up for themselves. You know, they don't care about authorities. Here on the other side, people are a little bit soft. It's like, oh, it's okay. I'll just do whatever they fucking tell me to, so we can get on with it. No, if you're not happy with something, say it. If you're not, and do something about it, because we're relying not just on certain individuals, but as a fucking unit, as a group, as a community. This is the time, the best time to do that. Don't wait fucking a whole day or a whole week to think, okay, what if someone doesn't like me? What if my family doesn't like you? Well, guess what? One day they might switch around and think, hey, I'm so fucking glad you did that, because I was terrified. One example, a couple of weeks ago, when I was at the shops, all right, I haven't worn a mask through this entire thing, this 2-3. I don't give a fuck what you think. I haven't worn a mask because, you know what, I'm protected, I'm healthy. I know my body well enough not to fucking catch this virus. Anyway, it's going down the escalator with my friend, no mask. As soon as someone saw us, saw us laughing and smiling, they took off their mask. And it's just little things like that. It's like, okay, you never know what people are going through, the fear that they're going, because, you know, they're hiding behind these masks, literally, like they're hiding behind their personalities, right? One small act can create a huge ripple effect in society. It doesn't matter how small you think, you know, what you can do is just create something, do something that can change lives, you know? It could be just little things in your street. Learn to love your fucking neighbor. Learn to fucking come together. Stop judging others, you know, based on certain things, you know? Get to know people better and realize that right now we need each other. We've got to come together and speak up and stand up, because our future is counting on us, man.
Absolutely. And you know what? They say a man has many faces. He can be all and none of them at the same time.
Yeah.
But when you mask them, when you mask people constantly, what face is there to show? Right? Because
Mm,
the analogy what a mask does is it puts you behind a barrier. It suppresses you,
yeah.
and it but at the same time, what we really are looking at is the amount of as you said, sheer inability for people to just begin to realize that this is a ripple effect where
Yeah.
people feel concerned. And um I think in the months that we have ahead of us, we will
Yeah.
see more people stand up. I reckon here's like people go, well, people say, well, the Melburnians and the Victorian lockdowns, well, they handled it well, blah blah. But there was a difference. There was no potential mandatory vaccine thrown in the mix of that, right? So
Yeah.
that's why they could live with it. And also, it was the initial, stages of the coronavirus. There wasn't as much information back then. But now, Sydney siders who saw what happened to Victoria and now have this whole, idea that the lockdown won't end until we all, like most of us, get vaccinated. That
Mm,
is where you're really pushing a majority of boundaries for human beings, right? And it
100%.
and let's just say those people who don't get the vaccine and end up dying, that's their responsibility. It's your
Yeah.
responsibility if you fucking put the wrong food in your body. It's your responsibility if you decide not to have your medicine. That's up to you.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
don't back people in a corner like a bunch of caged
Yeah.
animals, because that is cruel.
It is. It's immoral. It's unethical. Going through some of the comments now, we had a couple of statements. One person said, "No rights left, overpopulated. What else? And the heavily present. Yeah, but silence is acceptance, and they're stripping our rights, which is very much what they're doing. And the more rights that we lose, the less choice that we think we have. Right? Every time we give away our power to these authorities who have zero interest in improving our health. Like, why are there still bottle shops open? Why are there still processed thingos open? And some people say, oh, it's choice and responsibility. Why are there still like tobaccos on shelf, right? Like, just think about that for a moment. Yes, it's a way to fund the economy, but at the end of the day, these people have power to literally shift the whole thing and say, all right, maybe this what was that drug, hydroxychloroquine, whatever it is, it can fucking eliminate coronavirus, COVID 19.
Ivermectin as well. And by the way, episode 1671
Yeah.
of Joe Rogan Experience with Brett Weinstein and Pierre Corey, they really discuss some of the other avenues that they've used to be able to cure COVID, which don't require a vaccine, which,
Mm,
information's been suppressed about. So
yeah.
it's not a, but you mentioned at the beginning, Dan, when we started this podcast, and we're just coming to about an hour now,
Yeah.
is prevention is better than cure, and it's all about putting the right information in your body. So
Yeah.
basically, there isn't one solution to
Yeah.
stop COVID, right,
Yeah.
happening to yourself. There isn't one solution. There's prevention,
Yeah.
there's a vaccine, there's also
Yeah.
other drugs which information is depressing. So why should we be forced to only go
Mm,
with the one option,
yeah.
and those options, even if you wanted to get a vaccine, is fucking limited to the only vaccines that the Australian government will buy from the
Yeah.
pharmaceutical companies to provide for
Yeah.
the people? That
Yeah.
really doesn't make sense to me. That is
No, it
where
doesn't.
you're forcing me into a sale, man.
Yeah. It's like they're waving this little piece of meat. It's like, you want it, you want it. Well, and yeah, like going back to that, man, like prevention, like, there are other things that we can do, like improve our fucking well being, don't stop exercising just because it's capped to two people, and just because you got to stay indoors. No, like, start looking after your health, start looking after your mental well-being. We know that a lot of people are getting suicidal. I'm hearing a lot of people getting depressed over these things because they feel like they have to, comply with this lockdown. Yeah, like, all right, maybe you want to stay indoors and follow the narrative, but then they look after your health, look after yourself, because these guys, like, you don't even these think about it. You don't even know these politicians. All you've ever known them is behind the screen, and that's fucking wild. You literally don't know these people, and you're giving your power away to these people. It's strange. Like, when have these people last time gone out of their way to fucking make your life better. It just blows my mind to think that. And you know, we've got to remind ourselves that we have the fucking power. We have the power to have choice and hope, and you know, create a resistance and build a different life, a different timeline, and change this course. Because then you don't have. They're not the one that's steering this whole thing. They're not the one that's driving this. You are. But you're just allowing these people to do that because you think there's no hope when there are other options. You know, you can eat better, you can live better, and these things all play a huge factor in, you know, or how these people are dying. You know, as we already know, these people who are dying of COVID and all that, they're not living the best lifestyle. Either they're dying of old age, you know, they don't have the best diet, they're not exercising.
You don't know what their diet is. You don't know what their existing health problems are. That's the thing. This is why I'm saying it all comes back to the individual taking responsibility for themselves. Yeah. Now, I just actually want to take a look. Again, we've just had a comment here. And by the way, guys, because we've just come to about an hour, love to just slowly wrap this up. So I want to actually, anybody who's been watching the live stream and is on now, we'd love to, if you got any questions, it'd be great to ask both of us. We'd love to answer questions. So I just want to go to what Mitch wrote. England made mandatory vaccines today. Are we screwed? Well, as I mentioned, right now, the vaccines are not mandatory. The Australian government website said that. However, there is something called the Nuremberg Code. And although Nuremberg Code doesn't apply federally, each state has their own way of, because they've left the states to govern how the vaccine should be rolled out and whether it's mandatory or not, right? So again, if you live in certain states, they will have a different type of terms and conditions as to how the vaccine will be rolled out, because you got to remember the way Australia's nation is structured is federal then state, right? So I would encourage everybody to look at your state, whichever state you're from, look at it and find out what the protocols are for that.
So another important statement someone made was the petition. Yes, that's a great one as well. That one's a couple of days in. There are loopholes around this. There's a loophole throughout the system, but the way that the picture that they're creating is that you only have one choice. When no, these things, as a human being, you have a right to make a choice. You know, no one can force anything upon you. At the end of the day, you know, you don't have to be part of the system. You can leave the system and create your own system within it, right? So don't feel like you don't have a choice. You know, look into how you do your research. Look at what's this? People are always saying that we need a revolution, but no, it's actually doing it about how would this even come about with all the censorship going on. There's so many different ways, right? Like people are doing it low key. They're creating Facebooks or they're creating things on Instagram and setting dates and, you know, setting marches on certain dates. And you know what? Just talking more about it. As much as there is censorship, you know, try and send your message indirectly, you know, without being like so upfront, because of course, you know, you want to spread more awareness. Like what I've been doing through like these TikTok videos that I've been making, I draw them in with the stupidity and then I slide in, you know, the facts, the information that, hey, like we do have a choice, you know, like don't feel like you're boxed in and that you can't do anything about it. Like look into what Zach was saying, you know, look into the laws and the constitution and all these things, you know. There are loopholes, but they're making you think that there is no choice, because they want to farm us like fucking sheep, and we're not fucking sheep, man. We're more than that. And you know, we've got to take back our power and realize that, you know, the more we speak about it, the more people who are aware, they're your fucking tribe, and they're the people you want to stick by, especially in these times.
I think the issue with the revolution, why people are so unsure about doing it, and I'm speaking this in the collective level, is because people on the first fucking modality of frequency are confused because of all the misinformation. Like, because they have been bombarded with so much information. So that's why I dropped the question at the beginning. Do you trust your government, right? Because if you're going to have a revolution, you're going to have to ask yourself that question and either say yes or no at the end of the day, right? So when you get enough people who have that distrust, that's when that revolution starts, right? And then, of course, that's when they'll come after you, right? Because that's just how it shows in history. But you, as an individual, have to ask that for yourself first. And once enough people band together and want to come up with a different protocol. Now, let's just say, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, right? Because I always like to let's say, and I would say this will be the worst case scenario. Let's just say there's a revolution and all the people who do not want to get the vaccine. And by the way, just because you do not want to get the vaccine, you're not an anti-vaxxer. You just do not want to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
Anti-vax is a completely different type of movement, right?
Yeah.
You know, like I said, there are vaccines. Vaccines have been proven in science to help people in general, right? But
Yeah.
this is the way the modality of this is completely different, right?
Mm.
So let's just say you had a revolution of people who did not want to get the vaccine in Australia, right? All it is will be one thing. If the government are really hard on, and you've seen this in history before, they can just either suppress, they can send, you know, they can send out military, police, whatever,
Mm.
to be able to beat you down.
Mm.
And you know, that's the type of thing that will happen. We've seen that happen so often, right? We've
Yeah.
seen that happen so often in history.
Yeah.
Just because we're living in 2021 and we like to think we're more humane and we're more, you know, we have more rights and all that, it doesn't really, that's all smoke and mirrors, okay?
Mm.
I'm very red pilled about this shit.
Yeah.
And they can frame you and put you in any way they want to if they you believe, but if you believe, you know, if you have a belief that opposes it. But now, just to rephrase, if there was a revolution and we were all fucking idiots, right?
Yeah.
By fucking idiots, we were all idiots for not taking the vaccine, and all
Yeah.
these people started getting COVID and coughing their guts out and lungs out, and all these people started dying. Well, that's our fucking problem. Let's take
Yeah.
responsibility for
Yeah,
that as
yeah.
well. Take responsibility for that as a
Yeah.
revolutionary group
Yeah.
to say, well, we fucked up. Maybe we should have taken the vaccine.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
maybe we, you know, take responsibility for that. Either way, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
100%. Very well said, man. Quick shout out to Cheeky Charm for sharing that petition. And secondly, what's it called? Make your life a revolution. You know, make every day a fucking revolution. Stand up for something. You know, be about something, and then that's how it starts. And like we said earlier, it's just going to create a ripple effect. You're going to see more people speak about it, because the more silent we are about it, okay, the more we're going to allow these things to come. We don't have to wait until we're in the fucking corner and say, all right, now I've had enough. If you've had enough now, say it, speak about it, share it. You know, you're entitled to your own opinion and perspective. And right now, you just, like, we're already seeing that things are getting censored, right? You know, Facebook fucking fuck checkers, bro. they're stripping
Fuck
away
checkers.
our freedom as we speak, you know. And let's see, so, like, you know, we don't have to rely on these people to make a difference. We can make that difference, you know, and we don't have to wait for tomorrow. Right now, like Zach and myself speaking about this before, honestly, we were a little bit hesitant of how much we wanted to share. And you know what? Like, now's the fucking time. We can't wait any longer, you know. We can't wait, you know, for the right time. There's no fucking right time, man. You know, these things are happening. You know, these resistance that might occur in the future, right? They're planning 10 steps ahead of us.
They're Machiavellian. Look, I would guarantee you that these guys have read Machiavelli the Prince. And by the way, for those of you who don't know that book, I read that book in Greece 3 years ago. That book really describes the consolidation of power, right? And, you know, there's a Machiavellian power struggle always happening between the government and its people, right? Always happening between the government and its people. Nicola Machiavelli was very much about how, if you have power, do you consolidate it? Now, of course, it's very convoluted in the modern age. Like, we don't think it. But when you mention that it's a game of chess, they're already ahead of us. We don't know who the grand Machiavellian mastermind is behind this. You know, whether it's Bill Gates, whether it's the Rothschild, whether it's who, all these, you know, all these figures, these shadow figures, shadow government.
Yeah.
It's not about that. At the end of the day, you as an individual have self-governance over your own life, right? You have
100%.
self-governance over your own life. You can, you know, it says mark of the beast. No man may be able to buy or sell, save you have this mark. Yes, you'll be suppressed. Yes, that can happen. But at the end of the day, would you rather be a dead man standing fighting for the truth, or a man that's alive begging on your knees? Ask yourself that question.
That's fucking really good question, man. Like, what is your fucking legacy? What are you leaving for the people behind you, right? Are you allowing someone else to dictate this whole fucking thing? What's his name? Cheeky Charmy, they're the same heads. They're the heads attached to the same snake. I love that very much. Like the same puppets of the same strings, right? Mitch said it's crazy how our parents' generation are brainwashed. Yeah, 2 generations ago, people weren't. People did not have the access to the resource that we do have now. We weren't. They weren't in the age of the internet, right? Like we're so fortunate to use all this information and put it out there and let people think and question the whole thing. Yeah, they may have had like a lot of religion pressed upon them, certain systems. There's a very different lifestyle. People weren't as connected internationally. But now, like, we've got so much resource and information to change that whole game, and we can be that example, I know I've had like certain certain members in my family who are getting sucked in to the matrix, to the whole system. But little when you're planting those little seeds, when you're setting those examples, you start to see they'll shift their perspective, their awareness, and slowly wake up. Most of us are in a deep fucking amnesia. We've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten that we are powerful and almighty because we're not questioning, why we're here, who we are, and these people are telling us like, we're just fucking citizens, we're just compliant citizens. No, we're more than that.
We're deeper than that. We're spiritual beings, man.
Exactly, man. We're so much more powerful than that. We're literally connected to everything. Like I could blabber on all day about all these profound experiences that I've had, all these coincidences, synchronicities, and yada yada. But at the end of the day, like when we look more within ourselves and realize just how powerful we are, man, we can change the whole game. And they don't want you to think that. They want you at a lower vibration. They want you at a lower frequency, because if we go up here, the whole system will collapse. It will shatter before us, and we can rewrite the whole story. But it all got to start with us, that quote. Individually we fall, and together we rise. Like that's how it is, and we have to come together.
That's the real revolution. That's the real revolution. Yeah. It's a spiritual revolution that we need, because this is, this isn't going to be fought with. The battle is not fought on earth. The battle is fought beyond that. It's fought in the realms of the spirit. And at that time, Michael, the archangel, shall stand up, and this is where Archangel Michael is going to stand up and reclaim the throne for the people. This is the where the revolution is, and that verse that I've quoted is Daniel 12:1, and at the time, and I'll read it even verse word for word. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which stands for the children of the people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. And even to that same time, and at that time, your people shall be delivered, and everyone that shall be found written in the book. So, guys, if you want to stand up, if you want to be part of that in that spiritual battle, wake up, get to that, get to that frequency, realize that we need to now take a stand.
100%, man. Our future generations are counting on us. Cheeky Charm quoted, Satan uses the tool of fear. It's literally a spiritual war within the unseen realm. Real talk, 100%. A lot of everything that we see is created in the mental realm, right? You've got this other side that kind of manifests into our vessels, through this reality, through this dimension. And there are certain beings working behind the scenes, because they know just how pure we are at the soul core, right? We're light. All we are is light, and we've come and compressed ourselves into a density where we can experience this reality. And there are certain beings that feed off that, because they know it's just constantly giving, right? And if we tone down who we are, we just become more vulnerable to these states of being, because they can't fucking handle that. They can't handle just how incredible we are as a pure soul. And when they see us conforming and fear and things like that, there are literally energy leeches that will suck the life out of you. And before you know it, you feel like you've got no fucking choice but to do that, because you think that there is no other option. But yeah.
Yeah, look, man, I want to say that this has been incredible.
Yeah.
I'd love to wrap it up
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
we've really just juiced out a lot of content. But before we go, are there any last questions?
Yeah.
Are there any final questions? Any final comments?
Thanks, Chicky Charm. Lou said, speaking of no options, I had to take the COVID test today because I having rhinoplasty in days due to severe breathing issues. Yeah, see, I'd look into what the symptoms are and not really label them so quickly as to being coronavirus. Because I think a lot of like these, oh, you got to get tested, you got to get tested. If you got the smallest symptom, let's just chill out for a second. You could just have the fucking flu. You could just have a breathing issue. You could just be asthmatic. It could just be a fucking nasal problem, right? Like, don't jump the gun. Don't jump to conclusions and realize that, like there are other paths as well. You don't have to go by what the media or the government's going through. And yes, it's scary. You might lose your job. You might lose your job. You might lose your business. But on the other side, there's always going to be something greater for you. Okay. The longer we hold on to things that we think that our life is around, our life purpose around, you'll be surprised to see that on the other side of that, there's something greater. There's always a better option. The sooner we let go of certain ideas as well.
We lost connection, but there's always light at the other side.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Said, look, sorry, Daniel. You said there's always light at the other side, always another option. Just repeat quickly for Lou what you said
Oh yeah,
because
Lou.
she
So Lou,
disconnected.
yeah. So Lou, like, I was just saying, where? Yeah. So to rephrase that, essentially, as fearful as it might be to lose a job or a business or a certain position, role in society, there's always going to be something else that will favor you because, from my experience, okay, from what I've seen, the longer we hold on to certain things, the more dense it becomes and the harder it is to let go. And when you let go of that, there's always something else. You got to remember, life is just a constant energy exchange, right? Everything's a giving and taking. And when you move out of that, you'll be able to put yourself in a position where you can receive something better. Okay, don't be afraid of letting go of certain things and ideas and beliefs because the universe has always got you back. The less in your resistance, the more in your flow, life becomes easy, becomes more blissful. But yeah, man, really good chat. Any more questions, guys? Yeah, all good. Yeah, man, fucking awesome chat, man. We've scrambled on for a while, and man, we've let it out there. I feel like I got nothing on my chest to say, and I'm so glad people got to hear it and share this with you, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me again, man.
Yeah.
These StreamYards are awesome, and look,
Yeah.
I'm sure in the coming weeks, wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if we end up doing another one.
Yeah.
Given this was a real call to urgency one. I'm like, mate,
Yes.
we got to do it. We got to fucking pump this out. Like
100%.
shit is happening so rapid now that if we do, I mean, I probably will start even doing individual videos again. Because look, if anybody looks through my Facebook. I've got a whole bunch of Facebook videos I released over 2016 and 2017, some even over 2018. I have a ton of content there where I'm coming out and I'm talking, giving people different points of view, different points of the narrative. And look, man, I guess in some ways, like I do like to provide the best information I possibly can through my writing. That's where I feel like I can best express myself. That's why I'm in the process of writing my second book. But guys, I'd love to get on more. If it's going to help you, end of the day, it's I'm all about trying to make sure people have the right guidance, people have the right understanding, because that's just that everybody deserves to have more clarity.
100%, and giving and having that space as well for people to think for themselves, and allow them to question. Because if you question something, it doesn't make you a certain label. It's not just because you question wearing masks doesn't make you an anti-masker. You're just thinking for yourself. You're thinking outside of the box. Like myself, I've been publishing a lot of TikTok content. I was very cringy at first, but now I'm just publishing more about allowing people to have that space to think. Okay, you're not crazy because you're questioning the narrative. And on Instagram as well as Daniel John Allen. Man, pleasure to fucking talk with you. And I'm sure, again, like you said, we'll probably be back on this. People seem to have been enjoying this a lot more. We're very thankful for everyone that tuned in. And thank you for you guys for viewing this. And if you miss out on this content, we'll be sure to upload it on our channels as well. So again, thank you guys.
Upload and share. If you believe there's things. I mean, I will, and I do video editing, so I will, snip and snap a few parts that you felt were cool. you know, send this over if you believe it's going to help someone, because we just want to help more and more people.
That's it, man. All right, Zach, pleasure to chat with you, and thank you again to everyone else for joining the stream.
Thank you.